Hi, ArcfieldWeather.com meteorologist Paul Dorian here on Thursday morning, September 26th. Hurricane Helene has intensified over the last several hours, now a Category 2 hurricane. The latest observation just taken of Helene has maximum sustained winds at 100 miles per hour. It is quite likely to become a major Category 3 hurricane over the next several hours. That requires a minimum wind of 111 miles per hour. So now 100 and has to get up to 111 for maximum sustained winds to become a classified major hurricane. It continues to look like it'll push northward towards the Florida Gulf Coast, specifically the Big Bend region of Florida. Then I believe it'll have a big impact inland in places like Georgia. Even South Carolina can have an impact, and certainly the southern Appalachians as a whole will be impacted quite significantly by this hurricane. It will have little chance to weaken as it crosses northern Florida into Georgia, so you certainly can have hurricane force winds well up to the northern part of Georgia, and that includes the Atlanta metro area, and tremendous rainfall amounts are possible across the southern Appalachians, largely due to an enhancement of upward motion because of strong and persistent upsloping winds that we'll talk about over the next several minutes. This is the latest look at the tropical scene in the Atlantic Basin, as officially put out there by NOAA's National Hurricane Center. They're based in Miami, Florida. First of all, there's a new name system. This is now the ninth of the year. Isaac has been named as a tropical storm way out there in the Atlantic. There's another wave over the central tropical Atlantic. But this is, of course, the concern right now. Helene, again, it has intensified into a Category 2 storm. There's a good chance, not a guarantee, but a good chance of becoming a major Category 3, and even an outside chance of climbing all the way up to a Category 4 storm. It looks like it is going to continue to head in this fashion right here, making landfall early tonight, right in the Big Bend region of Florida, right in this area. And then it continues to move basically northward through Georgia, and at this point it'll start to become increasingly influenced by that very strong blocking high to the north. We've talked about it at length over the past several videos here. A blocking high up across Canada will not allow the remnants to move all the way to the north and east into the northeastern part of the U.S. Instead, it will grind to a halt and then start to loop back to the north and west, and eventually dissipate and kind of become absorbed by another system, an upper level trough that's situated right in this area. These two will kind of dance around each other for a while, what meteorologists term Fujiwara effect, when two lows, instead of coalescing into one, they tend to repel each other for a while. In this particular case, the tropical low will ultimately dissipate and become absorbed by what we call baroclinic upper level low that is currently situated over the south central part of the nation. Now, we've talked about this as well. Let me emphasize it again. The storm surge, typically the most significant storm surge occurs to the right of a northward moving tropical cyclone. In this case, that would place this area right here as the greatest threat for the highest storm surge, perhaps as high as maybe 8 feet or so, all the way down to the Tampa Bay region, and maximum area maybe just to the right of the landfalling area. 15 to 20 feet storm surge is on the table for this particular system, and it's also on the right side of the path. It's typically where isolated tornadoes develop when a tropical system moves northward like this. Again, this is the area to watch for possible tornadoes, and that includes all the way up into South Carolina, but northern Florida, maybe all the way down eastern Florida, possible tornadoes, especially southeastern Georgia, even parts of South Carolina can get some isolated tornado activity. Now, let me just clear the deck here and just point out again, the southern Appalachians, this particular area right here, you're going to have winds that are in this fashion, upsloping winds for quite a while here. With this system moving in this direction, the counterclockwise flow around a low pressure area will cause upsloping winds here, climbing up those eastern side of the southern Appalachians here, and the end result could be some tremendous rainfall amounts in the southern Appalachians. So again, this system is accelerating, will begin to accelerate later today into tonight, and that will prevent it from having much of a chance to weaken. It should enter the state of Georgia as a hurricane still, and that's why it could be a big impact well inland with Hurricane Helene. Now here's the latest satellite loop from NOAA's Goes East satellite. This is what we call the geocolor band here of the last several frames here. And you can kind of see an area that may develop an eye right in this area right here. A pretty symmetrical looking hurricane right now. It is moving over some very warm waters of the eastern Gulf of Mexico. The environmental conditions are certainly favorable for additional intensification. Again, it is now a Category 2 hurricane, but the combination of moving over these very warm waters and low vertical wind shear will allow it to intensify, likely into Category 3 status, and again, an outside chance of Category 4 before it makes landfall, likely right in this area right here early tonight, and again, quite likely as a major Category 3. Now, in terms of how often this occurs, we had a major hurricane hit Florida just a year ago, Idalia, and the year before that we had a major hurricane hit Ian. In fact, this would be the 9th major hurricane Florida landfalling hurricane since the year 2000. So by no means is it unprecedented. But again, that doesn't mean I'm not trying to minimize the impact here. There certainly will be significant impact, and especially along the right side of where the landfall occurs. And again, that is likely to take place right in this area here. And again, impact, serious impact, all the way up through much of Georgia and even into South Carolina and the southern Appalachians. Grounds are pretty well soaked across a good portion of Georgia, so that will increase the chance for some downed trees, and in other words, power outages could be quite substantial all the way up into the state of Georgia and of course across Florida as well. But here it is right now, Category 2 with maximum sustained winds at 100 miles per hour as of the 8 a.m. reading. Now here's the current look at the actual sea surface temperatures across the Gulf of Mexico. This is not the anomaly map that we often look at, but the actual temperatures here. By the way, these temperatures are above normal for this time of the year. You can see in Celsius, it's moving over an area, it's about 86 degrees Fahrenheit. That's fully supportive of intensification of this particular system. An area of interest, though, right here, notice it cools off a little bit right before this system can reach the coast. Right along the coast is a little bit cooler water here, and that it is a good thing. It could prevent some last-minute intensification here, but again, a little bit of a cool tongue of water right along the coast. But for now, it's moving over some very warm waters of the eastern Gulf of Mexico, right about this area right here, which is 30 degrees Celsius, translates to about 86 degrees Fahrenheit. Again, a little bit, just a tad cooler as it approaches the coast, which will be later this afternoon into early tonight. Well, let's walk through last night's 0Z run of the GFS. First, we're looking at the 500 millibar height anomalies, and here we can clearly see this so-called Fujiwara effect. By the way, that's named after a Japanese meteorologist who wrote a paper, published a paper on this kind of phenomenon about 100 years ago, 1921 as a matter of fact. And if you go to artfieldweather.com, I have a link to the actual paper in the posting at artfieldweather.com. Basically what it says, when two low pressures, especially tropical low pressures, approach each other, they tend to repel each other for a while and kind of do a dance around or a rotation around, and that is exactly what's going to happen excuse me, in this particular case. Again, this is at the 500 millibar level, which is in the middle part of the atmosphere. This is just a normal call it a normal continental type of what we call baroclinic upper level trough, sitting right over the heart of the Tennessee Valley or the middle Mississippi Valley region. And here's the reflection of 500 millibars this morning of Hurricane Helene. Now watch what happens as it pushes to the north, again making landfall early this evening right in that Big Bend area. Here's the upper level trough, and instead of just consolidating into one, they do this little bit of a dance around each other in this fashion, and ultimately the tropical low tends to weaken, dissipate, and gets fully absorbed by this upper level trough, so that by the time we get to the early part of the upcoming weekend, you have a vigorous upper level trough in just one system here over the Tennessee Valley. And all of this is, much of this is a result of this very, very strong high pressure ridge to the north that is preventing the remnants of the hurricane from moving farther to the north into the mid-Atlantic or the northeast U.S. Instead, it will go across Georgia and again will be forced to go to the north and west due to this very, very substantial blocking pattern over southern Canada. Well, let's now wrap up with the surface forecast mass from last night's zero-Z GFS model. And GFS has actually done a pretty good job with the storm in terms of the track. It had it kind of cutting through this narrow band of water, this narrow area of water between Yucatan and Cuba. And indeed, that's pretty much what happened. And now it is moving north to northeast and again headed right for this Big Bend area of the Florida Gulf Coast. And here we go. And there's some heavy rain that extends all the way up into the southern Appalachians. And again, we talked about upsloping flow. And here it is right here. These are the isobars. These black lines represent isobar pattern here. And there's a counterclockwise flow around low pressure areas in the northern hemisphere. And hence you have the upsloping into the southern Appalachians, and this could produce rainfall amounts that certainly can exceed a foot in some areas over the next 48 hours or so. But you have this upsloping flow. Let's now move forward here. This is early this evening. This is the 8 p.m. forecast map right around the time of a possible landfall in that Big Bend area. Now let's go forward. And it does not weaken all that significantly after landfall and the time it arrives in southern Georgia. This is again a likely big impacting storm system inland throughout Georgia, even into South Carolina here. Expect a lot of power outages and hurricane force winds and substantial rain, especially in those higher elevations of the southern Appalachians. Then the system forced to go to the north and west instead of up to New England, Mid-Atlantic or New England. It's forced to go to the north and west, and it ultimately kind of stalls out and dies out over the middle Mississippi Valley region. This is now going all the way into the day on Saturday. Now, another interesting aspect here, a lot of this, not a lot, but some of the tropical moisture field associated with Hurricane Helene does in fact make it all the way into the Mid-Atlantic region. And then you have the added impact potentially of this upper level low that's sitting to the south and west, and that too ends up pushing some moisture into the Mid-Atlantic region. So we're talking about a possibility of some shower activity on Friday and Saturday in the Mid-Atlantic region as a result of, let's call it, the combination of the hurricane and that baroclinic upper level trough. Again, here is one consolidated area in the upper part of the atmosphere, an upper level low at this time. Late Saturday night, there's Penn State plays a football game Saturday evening. Certainly can be some showers during Saturday and Saturday night up in State College, up across central Pennsylvania, associated with that upper level low. And that threat looks like it'll last into Sunday. Again, here is kind of the remnants of that combination of the hurricane and that upper level low, still producing some rainfall over the Mid-Atlantic region. Has a very difficult time making it all the way up into New England, and that again is because of this blocking high at the surface and at the mid and upper levels of the atmosphere that continues to reside over the Hudson Bay region of Canada. It kind of protects New England from any of this tropical moisture, but it doesn't stop it from making it all the way into the mid-Atlantic region. Again, the combination of the tropical moisture and that normal upper level low feeding in some moisture into the mid-Atlantic region. Here we are on Sunday evening. Let's go out a little bit farther in time into early Monday morning. Still, some remnants of that system hanging along the mid-Atlantic coastline all the way into early part of next week. That's it for now. For ArcFieldWeather.com, this is meteorologist Paul Dorian.